Let's take a look at the new PS5 beta. Why did Sony just rename the PS5? And here's why the Spider-Man 2 accessory situation is frustrating. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PSReady. I hope you had a great weekend playing a ton of video games. My power is finally restored here at my house. It took until last night. I was a little bit worried I was gonna have to go film at my friend's house again, but right before I was about to go to bed, the power flipped back on and I finally got to play some more video games, so that was cool. What wasn't cool was having to get rid of all the food that was in my fridge. Before I jump into all this news, I wanted to give you my humble YouTuber request and ask you to help me get to 200,000 subscribers. All you gotta do is subscribe, and if you're feeling really nice, set your notifications to all. All right, so the first news story to get into this week is that Sony out of nowhere has dropped a new beta update for the PlayStation 5. And one thing that's different about Sony when you look at Xbox, Nintendo, even Valve for that measure, is that they release a really big update into beta and they test the hell out of it for months. It's not particularly hard to get into these betas. Usually you can sign up for access, but this time around I couldn't find the sign up link, so it looks like it's just gonna be a random selection of people who get a code in their email. I'm assuming that they'll base it on if you've been in a beta before, so hopefully I get my hands on it because there's actually some cool features that I would really love to take use of. I'm just gonna go through all the features included in this update and then give you my general thoughts, but they definitely save the better ones for the end, so yeah, we'll get the small ones out of the way first. The first one is that you can turn on a setting that'll let you use a second controller for assistance. So like if you're playing with a little kid or someone who has trouble with fine movement, you can basically use two controllers on the same account, if I'm reading this correctly, so you can give a little bit of pitch hitter support if someone you're playing with is having a little bit of difficulty in a level. And man, I used to babysit my little cousins when I was in college for a little extra cash and we would play video games all the time. They were like 5 and 6 at the time, I want to say. This feature would have came in so handy on some of the harder games I was bringing over for them to play on their PlayStation 4. Like the 2015 version of Battlefront, it would have been awesome if I could help them out with this second controller feature. Another feature that they've added under the accessibility section of the settings that actually just seems like a really cool feature to include is more haptic feedback when you're navigating the system's operating system. They say when it's enabled, system sound effects for certain events will also be reflected physically through haptics, such as moving focus, reaching the end limit of a scrollable section, checking a box, or when you receive a notification or boot up a game. As they put it, this feature increases immersion, and honestly, I think I'm going to turn it on my console just because I like how good the haptic feedback is on the DualSense controller, and this reminds me of last year with iOS 16 on the iPhone. They added in haptic feedback, and I've left that on since it was introduced on the iPhone just because that little bit of force feedback you get when you're typing feels really cool. So yeah, I think I'm going to turn this on my PS5 if I get into the beta. This next new feature is a big one, and it's one I didn't really expect to see. Sony has actually added the ability to take advantage of Dolby Atmos. So down here in my basement, my speaker setup is 2 HomePod minis, and I don't think that has Dolby Atmos support, but I have a Sonos Beam on my upstairs TV, which is kind of in a screening room, and I'm really excited about being able to use Dolby Atmos on it because when I'm using my Apple TV up there to watch movies and stuff, when Dolby Atmos kicks in, it's awesome and there's no sync delay. But if I'm being honest, I'm a little surprised Sony even included this feature in the first place, because as we saw earlier in the year with Dolby Vision when that came out, instead of just including that like the Xbox Series X does, Sony just developed their own version of it that you can only get on Bravia TVs, which makes sense if you're looking at it from a business perspective because Sony makes a PlayStation 5. They'd obviously want you to also be upsold on buying a big Bravia TV, which are incredibly expensive. So yeah, getting Dolby Atmos support is a great first step. I love that feature. I was able to take advantage of it on my Series X when that was plugged in. I'd like to see them extend it out to Dolby Vision next, because having that with my TV upstairs would be just the best scenario ever for PlayStation 5 gaming. They also point out that Dolby Atmos works with their 3D Tempest audio that they have in the PlayStation 5, so you're gonna get a pretty good audio experience out of this if you use Dolby Atmos. If you use 3D audio with the Pulse Wireless 3D headset, you're also going to get some really good audio experiences out of your PlayStation 5. I just like that audio is being focused on, because as someone who has a channel about the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally, both of those devices have incredible speakers, and it made me kind of want better audio support from console manufacturers, because if Valve can do it and if Asus can do it, so can Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. Next, they've enhanced the social features on the PlayStation 5. The first thing they have is a party UI update. You can now invite a player into a closed party without automatically adding that player into the group or creating a new group. So that's kind of cool. You can invite like a whole group of people you already have to a new party when you're playing a game, and it'll just invite everyone in there. That's a good ease of use feature that I like to see. And then they've added a share screen preview. So if you want to see what your friend is playing and they're sharing their screen to your group, you can see a little preview of it on your PlayStation 5 to see what part of the game they're at. I guess that could be like a warning for spoilers maybe or something. I don't know. It just seems like a visual update there. And this is definitely a feature that I thought was already implemented on the PlayStation 5, but if it wasn't, I guess it's good that it's here now. You're now going to be able to just join up on someone's game from your friends list if they're playing a multiplayer game. I use this in Steam all the time. My friends have been playing BattleBit Theater, they've been playing Battlefield 2042, they've been playing Hell Let Loose, and just being able to go on my friends list on Steam and click join their game makes that super simple, and I love having that feature on the PlayStation 5. Basically, like any feature that I use in Steam that I don't have on the PlayStation 5, I immediately notice it's not there and I really want it. And then right at the bottom, they're giving us more ease of use features. This is one that I cannot believe was not on the PlayStation 5 because yes, it is one I use in Steam all the time. It's being able to search within your game library. So if you don't want to go by alphabetical order, you have a bunch of games and you don't want to scroll down, which is a totally believable scenario if you've been listening to me for the past couple of years and been adding your PS Plus games to your account. Now you can just search for an individual game within your account, which again, I use it in Steam all the time. I've got so many games on my Steam account. You have a search bar right there on your games list and it comes in so handy. So I'm glad Sony is adding this in. I'm just kind of shocked that it took them this long. They've also improved game help with the card system that I wish I used more because it's genuinely cool. And I feel like by not using it, it tells Sony that people don't really want it. I just want more games to take advantage of it. And I want the games to put it in my face more because it is a genuinely useful feature. And this would have come in so handy when I was living with my parents during the PS3 era. And I say that like it's a weird thing. I was in high school. It's not weird to live with your parents in high school. But yeah, the PS5 beep that starts up, like the microwave beep that you get when you start up the PS3, the PS4, and the PS5, they finally give you the ability to mute that, which is kind of weird considering that you use that beep to also go into safe mode by holding the power button. So I'm assuming that if you mute the beep, it's just for turning the console on and off. It's definitely better for younger people who want to play games at night without waking up their parents and getting in trouble. I was definitely doing that back in the day when I lived with my parents. I was playing Resident Evil 4 on my GameCube all the time. I was playing God of War. I was playing Metal Gear games way too late, especially in the summer, right? Like right now, I didn't have anything to do. I was playing video games all night long. For some reason, that really bothered my parents. So yeah, turning on or off the PlayStation 3 at the time really sucked because that beep echoes through your entire goddamn house and will wake up any single person within a 3-block radius. And then finally, look, we've talked about 2 terabyte SSDs. We've talked about 4 terabyte SSDs, and now you're going to be able to use up to 8 terabytes of SSD storage within your PlayStation 5. Now, I've looked around the internet, guys. You've watched this channel before. You know that I am a purveyor of SSDs. I personally have only seen SSDs really go up to 4 terabytes, and they're kind of still a little cost prohibitive at that price point. So I couldn't imagine an 8 terabyte drive costing less than like, I don't know, $600 or $700. It's just a crazy amount of storage. But if you're able to get your hands on one, you can rest easy knowing that you'll be able to put it in your PlayStation 5 and be able to take advantage of all that space. So yeah, the highlights for me are definitely that 8 terabyte SSD support, also being able to mute the button beep when you turn your console on or off. That is a godsend. And finally, Dolby Atmos. I'm glad that Sony is kind of branching out and allowing other technologies from competitors to work on their console. I mean, that should be a given, but it's not, so I'm glad that they're doing it. But yeah, like I said earlier in the video, the blog post said this update's coming out later this year, so hopefully we don't have to wait too long. I'm kind of bummed out we didn't get themes or a web browser in this. Those are the 2 big features I'd really love to see, but it feels like they knew, and that's why at the last second they were like, we need a cool feature here. We need to support something that people have been asking for. Oh, let's just make it so they can mute the beep. We'll save all the kids out there playing PS5 games late at night. All right, so next up here, last week we talked about how there was going to be a rumored permanent price drop for the current version of the PlayStation 5 to kind of clear out all of the stock that they have laying around in preparation for the new PS5 Slim that's allegedly coming out later this year. I said allegedly because it hasn't been officially announced, but it is definitely coming out later this year. And the new update we have around this story is that it seems like Sony has changed the name of the PlayStation 5. So when they implemented this price drop, they changed the PS5's naming structure from PS5 Digital and Disc Edition to PS5 Standard Console. And what does that make you think of, right? Them adding new hardware to the product lineup. They're gonna have the PS5 Standard for at least a little bit while they sell through the current current stock that they already have. Then they're gonna also have the PS5 Slim, which is like the latest and greatest base model PlayStation 5. And then by the end of next year, they're going to have the PlayStation 5 Pro. And obviously as time goes on, they're definitely gonna phase out that standard edition console, but this is pretty much all the evidence I think we need that the PS5 Slim is 100% coming at the end of this year. Personally, I'm really curious about when Sony's going to announce this thing. We've heard rumors that it's going to happen in August, which is right around the corner. The summer is flying by way too fast, but we've also heard that this thing is coming in September, so they kind of have to announce it in August, right? Like they either have to announce it in August or they just wait until they release it and then just announce it right when it comes out. But I'd really like them to announce it in August because all of the other rumors we've heard about this so far is that this thing is going to be announced alongside a new PlayStation showcase. So we're gonna get a new showcase. They're gonna show off games we can look forward to after Spider-Man 2, especially going into next year. And then at the very end, like they did with the handheld Project Q, they're gonna show off a brand new PS5 that you can go pick up right now. And there are also some developments I think I'll talk about in the next video surrounding that whole PlayStation earbud situation. So it seems like all of this hardware that they're building out around the PlayStation 5 is going to be ready towards September of this year. So let's get a move on and announce it during a showcase. I'm really excited about the prospect of a PS5 Pro, but I gotta be honest, I think it's way too early and a little bit unnecessary. It feels like a lot of these games that are pushing the PlayStation 5 to the point where it needs to run them at 30 FPS are only doing that because they're not optimized well. It doesn't really feel like they're actually pushing the console outside of the icon fights in Final Fantasy 16. I understand why those might be dropping frames since you're fighting on essentially an overworld, right? Like that makes sense. Other games like Jedi Survivor, no way. There's no reason that game should be running as poorly as it does still months after it came out. And finally, that brings us to the last story of today's video, which is the entire messed up situation surrounding the Spider-Man plates, controller, and special edition console. So like all PlayStation pre-orders, this just happened randomly Friday morning and it was a complete mess. I went through my normal tactic, which is to follow Wario64 and turn on notifications, and I clicked that link, that PlayStation Direct link, as soon as he tweeted it out, and I was immediately bummed out to see that while the collector's edition console was in stock and the DualSense was in stock, the plates were already sold out, which is absolutely nuts because I think if you look at that whole spread, right, you have the collector's edition console, you have the plates, and you have the controller, the thing that people probably wanted the most was the plates, and that also coincidentally is the cheapest thing to produce, right? It's molded plastic with paint on it. But anyway, we're in the backseat of my friend's car during all this, and I only had service intermittently throughout the entire drive across the state to Kalamazoo. I was at this anime convention for my friend's birthday, which, you know, anime, not my thing, but you know, I did get to meet Hunk at the convention, so it wasn't a complete loss. So yeah, I was like, I'm gonna pre-order what I can now. I ended up grabbing the DualSense controller because even though I said I'm good on DualSense controllers, I got my DualSense Edge, I've got my God of War Ragnarok one, I've got my Midnight Black one. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. Venom is one of my favorite anti-heroes. I love the black suit. It's just so cool. I needed to pick that up. But then as I would check my phone throughout the drive, I saw the plates show up at Best Buy. They were sold out within 1 second. Like actually, I saw them show up at Target. They never showed up at Amazon, which is a place I always have the best luck pre-ordering this stuff. And all day long, I saw that console in stock everywhere, and I saw that controller in stock everywhere, but the plates were never in stock. And Insomniac Games responded to people who were asking about it on Twitter, saying that it's very unlikely that the plates are gonna be made again. And I gotta go back to what I said earlier, which is why? That's the cheapest thing to make. They shouldn't be limited at all. We should be able to buy Spider-Man 2 edition plates for our console as long as the PS5 exists. They're extremely high markup, they're extremely cheap to make. They should have a whole line of these things. They should be going back to all the games that were released over the past 2.5 years and making plates for those, like The Last of Us Part 1, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Returnal even, Gran Turismo 7. All of those games could totally justify having their own collector's edition plates, and they could just keep them in Target or Best Buy or any of these other stores in perpetuity, and I think people would buy them, right? Because it sucks having to sell your console or have 2 PlayStation 5s when a really good collector's edition console comes out, and that's what always has stopped me in the past from ever buying a collector's edition console. But yeah, that's how it went for me. I'd love to hear how it went for you down in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.